All right. So before I jump into all of the signs, I did want to let you guys know that just for the month of February and the first week of March, I'm offering a different type of reading called an abundance reading. And basically, what I'm going to be doing is looking at all of your luckiest days for the next 6 months, like the best energy when you might want to launch something, or when you might meet somebody, or when you might get more money. Basically, when you have opportunities, ideas, great conversations, breakthroughs come to you. So I'll list all those out for you and kind of explain what they are. And then I will do a tarot spread that shows you how to best take advantage of that energy over the next 6 months, how to best create more of that abundance in your life. Again, I'm only going to have this available for this month in particular, and I may also limit the amount of them that I'm offering just because it came to me in a meditation, so I wanted to offer it to you guys. But I don't necessarily want to make this like my whole kind of gig. I'm mostly doing astrology coaching. So if you are interested in getting your abundance reading, definitely check that out in the link down below while they are still available. And I will see you guys there. Hey guys, this is Courtney from Willis Bloom, and today we're going to talk about why highly sensitive people are less likely to be successful, which is super sad. And it is my mission to help spiritual, sensitive individuals become entrepreneurs so that they can create success in the life of their dreams. So, why is it that highly sensitive people are less likely to be successful? This typically happens because of poor energy management, and this is usually correlated with trying to fit your life into a version of society that is normal. So if you remember the Harry Potter movies, you know that there are muggles, which are normal people without powers, and then there are wizards like Harry Potter who have tons of powers. And you see Harry Potter living in the cupboard underneath the staircase of this muggle family. He's being poorly treated. He's being misunderstood. He's feared. He's not integrated well into that world. And that's what it feels like when you are a highly sensitive, empath, spiritual individual with a strong soul purpose, where you've come here as a light worker. You've come here to do a specific mission, to spread healing in this darker world. And 20% of people are highly sensitive. 20% of people, I believe, are light workers who have come here with a specific mission. And they feel different, but they still try to force themselves like a square peg in a round hole. And ultimately, they're not ever going to fully integrate and feel like they fit into normal society. They're never going to be a muggle. They're meant to feel different. And so what happens is when a wizard or a highly sensitive person comes into an environment like this and tries to be a muggle, their energy is completely depleted because they're coming in with more sensitivity so that they are able to tackle situations with a lot more nuance, with respect to energy and spirituality, and seeing things beyond the material realm. But when they bring their energy into this really material, dense earthly realm, which is what we all have to do to some extent, when they bring it to that, it becomes really hard to remain in their essence, to remain in their light, to remain feeling like they have the natural energy that is bestowed upon them. And so they can feel very, very drained and physically depleted. The more that they try to aspire to be like people who don't really actually resonate with them on a soul level, or to do jobs that actually doesn't reflect their essence, which I have a video about your essence in astrology, and you can check that out down below. And I also have a video on if you are highly sensitive. You can check that out down below with astrology factors, like what to look for in astrology to know if you are highly sensitive. So sorry, I just like lost my train of thought. But basically, if you are trying to fit into this certain way of doing things, you're just going to deplete your energy, because as a highly sensitive person, you are naturally equipped to look for more information in your environment, to see energy, to see emotions, to read people, to notice subtle nuances that affect things. You're very intuitive. You might be able to predict the future. You just know stuff. You're highly creative. You're able to use these skills to transform the world around you. But instead of transforming the world around you, many individuals will end up basically trying to fit in, and that's not really what they're meant to do. So the world starts to change them, but they're never actually really changing. Instead, their light is just dimming. Their energy is just compressing in upon itself. And so I actually notice a lot of people who are highly sensitive will often develop like physical conditions, immune conditions, because it's almost like our soul and our body are just not in synchronicity. The things that we're doing in the real world and what we were really meant to do as a soul are not synchronizing. And so we develop like autoimmune diseases. We become really exhausted very easily. We attract energy vampires. We become saviors who try to help everybody, and they feed off of our light. And all these situations develop because we're actually trying to fit our light into a system or an existing way of doing things that isn't actually working. And so what somebody who is highly sensitive needs to do is learn how to, first of all, manage their energy. And this looks like doing activities that connect you to your spirit, to your soul, and nourish your soul, which will look different for everybody. But I like meditating, I like journaling, walking in nature, making sure that my days are structured in a way that I can take time to process my emotions. I can take time to go outside if I need to, because I am sensitive. I can't just work under fluorescent lighting for 8 hours a day. That would actually cause me tremendous distress. And if I'm not tuning in with my emotions and respecting that side of myself, it keeps going and going and going, stressing my body until I develop chronic fatigue or something of that nature. So if you're noticing a pattern here, you might have some of these things. And instead of just immediately jumping out of the muggle world, can you create your own little beautiful sector of your life where you can nourish your soul, even if that looks like your entire evening is dedicated to a bubble bath and, you know, whatever that looks like for you, making a good meal, whatever. So energy management. And the other is actually making sure that you don't try to fit into that life, that you slowly kind of take back and reclaim your autonomy and your authenticity so that you can live in your essence. And that doesn't look like an immediate, abrupt change, because that's not really how life typically works. But usually we want to take a step back and slowly come back into ourselves. And for many of us, that will look like becoming a service provider, an entrepreneur, a healer of some sort, because you'll notice you can use your skills in the appropriate way so that you actually become energized through activities and not just drained. And you'll notice that you can also temper how much you work so that you can put the right amount of effort and the right amount of self-care within your day to not deplete you. So that is what highly sensitive people, light workers, healers, empaths all came here for. We all came here as souls, and we basically need to protect ourselves. And instead, many of us are trying to fit into the muggle world, and our wizardry is not being honored. Okay, so the second really big reason why it's hard to be successful as an empath or highly sensitive person is that there is typically a low threshold for negative emotions or for a sense of frustration. So what this looks like is typically what I see in this type of scenario is the whole Harry Potter vibe, where he's growing up as a wizard in a muggle's world, and he's in a muggle family because his family died. And he's basically growing up in an environment that is extremely toxic and doesn't respect his gifts and who he is. And this is very common with highly sensitive people. And I do believe it's because we're meant to learn how to understand others and overcome certain things. I think there's a reason behind it. But I noticed that the majority of empaths, highly sensitive people, healers, are actually born into environments that are probably somewhat okay, but also somewhat toxic to their sensitive nature. They usually grow up in families that don't really understand fully their gifts, that don't understand why they're so sensitive, why they need so much time. That's not always going to be the case, but it is often the case. And because they are highly sensitive growing up in this environment, they are more impacted by not being understood, by being misattuned to, by having people not respect their emotional boundaries and helping them regulate. And so what happens is they actually become worse off than a normal muggle kid who would have grown up in that same environment because, again, they're so sensitive. And so what this amounts to is that they will normally have a lower threshold for experiencing negative emotions. They have more pain points, trigger points, or if you watch the pain body. What's his name? Eckhart Tolle. So basically, they weren't taught how to emotionally handle what they're experiencing. So not only do they have more triggers, more sensitivities as they grow older, but they also don't have the tools to manage when those trigger points are pushed on. And so what this looks like is a lot of coping strategies that develop. And I see this so much in my coaching clients. And if you're interested in doing astrology coaching with me, definitely check me out at willispoon.com and I can help you with this. But this is what I see so much with my coaching clients is that they will grow up as a sensitive person in a difficult environment. And then it's their job to figure out how the fuck to deal with all this stuff. But instead, they become overwhelmed like a tidal wave of these emotions. And in order to avoid that, they will do a number of things that inherently will be somewhat self-sabotaging, will be somewhat avoiding the circumstance. And so what that looks like is maybe procrastination, not taking action, having really, really strong negative thinking. So most of the time, the emotional dysregulation can often turn in on itself and become like basically hypercritical. I notice that the most empaths that are in this type of environment become very, very highly critical. And basically the reason for this is because instead of recognizing the dysfunction within our family, as children, we don't have the capacity to do that because our survival is linked to theirs. So what we do is we start to understand that we are the reason why bad things are happening. We are bad. And it's a very subconscious thing, but we cannot look at our parents and see them as problematic. We have to turn it in on ourselves in order to survive. That's just the basic kind of foundation of children because they're so young. They're still developing. They don't have the consciousness to fully grasp that I'm a child and it's a child in a difficult situation. And so what happens is we start to have really strong negative emotions that come up around ourselves and a lot of self-criticism, self-doubt. And then again, as we become more triggered as we get older, those things we don't necessarily have the tools to work through them, and it can start these kind of dialogues in our head. So it's not only are we experiencing a difficult emotion, but usually it's somehow correlated to us, and it's very, very messy and very challenging. And so in order for someone to truly step up and be successful, they're going to have a lot more emotional armor on them because inherently in success, we have to fail. We have to encounter difficult experiences. As it is, there's going to be lots of ups and downs, but failure is an inherent part of success. And an example of this is Colonel Sanders, who created KFC restaurant and chicken recipe or whatever. He was turned down 1,009 times. And this was when he was trying to sell his fried chicken recipe. And he actually started this in his late 50s, I believe. And at 65 years old, he retired, took his Social Security check and tried to start this business. He got rejected over 1,000 times. So I think that you guys can imagine that anybody out there who's reached really massive success has continuously failed and pivoted, failed and pivoted, failed and pivoted. I've studied hundreds of entrepreneurs. I'm obsessed with business. And the main through line that I see with every single one of them is that they all have many failures under their belt and often many failed businesses, at least failed attempts within one business. Most have many failed businesses behind them. And so in order to be successful, we have to understand that failure is okay. But when you are highly sensitive, when you've gone through these difficult experiences, that really critical voice inside of yourself, the trouble with emotional regulation means that failure feels like an enormous threat. Because if I fail, then I'm bad, and then and it just perpetuates this really ugly, toxic narrative. And so many of us will try so hard to avoid revisiting that pain that we often experience in childhood. Because we don't want to be bad. We don't want to be a failure. And so what do? We don't even try. Or we try and we stay within our comfort zone. We never risk failure. And because we never risk failure, we don't fail, but we never succeed either. And so it's so important to normalize failure, reframe the thoughts around it, reframe our thoughts around ourselves, learn how to emotionally regulate during difficult circumstances, create a less sensitive trigger point around ourselves so that we don't become activated as easily. And understand that all of the things that we experience are a normal part of our process and healing journey. Nothing about it is wrong. Nothing about it is bad. You are meant to be this way. You are this way. And loving and accepting ourselves unconditionally is the only way to truly start succeeding. And so this is what I've noticed with a lot of my clients. And if you guys are interested in helping yourselves basically reach this level of success, take action, stop procrastinating, stop with the negative self-talk, then definitely hit me up at contact@willispoon.com or check out my website for astrology coaching, because this will change your life. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye.